What's up and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, April 14th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we had some truly outstanding pitching performances this weekend. Michael Busch got his revenge on the Dodgers, waiver ads, and injury replacements. Speaking of injuries, unfortunately, that is where we need to start. Justin Steele out for the season with an elbow surgery per Jeff Passan. Cubs left-hander Justin Steele will undergo reconstructive elbow surgery and miss the remainder of the 2025 season. Unclear yet whether it's a full Tommy John or primary repair, but his season is over regardless. Awful news for the Cubs, who are off to a great start. It is awful news for the Cubs. It's awful news for fantasy managers as well. Justin Steele likely drafted as your SP3, I would say most likely. Maybe SP2, SP4, depending on the size of your league, but this is a very big loss for fantasy. Colin Ray, likely to take his spot in the rotation for now. Deeper leagues, NL only, sure, but I don't think we have much interest in Colin Ray. Before we get into replacements, I mean, any just thoughts on the magnitude of this injury and how it affects, I don't know, the fantasy landscape and the Cubs, I guess?
It's a bummer because Steele was coming off his best start. He, I think, has been kind of perpetually underrated for a couple of years now, and people didn't really take him seriously because of his limited repertoire. But it's a bummer. He's fun to watch pitch. He's very good, and now he's out until next year, and he's probably gonna have to convince everyone all over again that he's good. And it is worth noting he's had Tommy John surgery before, back in, I believe, 2017. So if it's Tommy John, it would be a second. Even if it's just the internal brace, it would still be repairing a previously repaired. So it's long odds for him to come back as the same guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's all well said. If you're looking for replacements for this upcoming week, Scott's sleeper pitchers in order: Jeffrey Springs, Grant Holmes, Mitch Keller, Easton Lucas, Tyler McGill, JP Sears, Landon Roop, Jameson Tyone, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Osvaldo Bido. Rodriguez, by the way, this weekend, 6 1/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, and he is at the Marlins. So obviously that is a really good matchup. Let's get into just other waiver wire pitchers that stood out this weekend because people need Justin Steele replacements and all the other pitching injuries that we've dealt with up to this point. First group includes Hayden Wesneski, Chase Dollander, Matthew Boyd, and David Peterson. So differing level of skills, differing level of matchups this week. If you guys need the matchups, I can bring those up for any of these pitchers. But are there any of those names that just stand out long-term for this season? Wesneski, Dollander, Matthew Boyd, and David Peterson.
You know, I didn't feel like it was a great weekend for pitchers to pick up off the waiver wire. In my own leagues, the pitcher I was targeting most was Easton Lucas, who of course didn't pitch this weekend, but now lines up for 2 starts because of how the Blue Jays rearranged their rotation. And he's kind of a mystery box. Yeah. So he'd be higher on the list than I think any of these guys. Well, maybe not Dollander. I mean, Dollander.
Yeah, I'd much rather have Dollander.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd much rather. I think I was prioritizing Lucas over Dollander because, I just think Dollander is going to be unusable half the time in all likelihood. If he becomes usable in the road starts, which is, I think, a very big.
He was very good in his first road start, right?
Right, but you know what happens with Rockies pitchers. It's hard to maintain 2 different approaches at home and on the road, and the difficulties of Coors Field kind of just ruin them everywhere a lot of times. So, and then obviously he has a terrible offense backing him. So I'm not saying Dollander would be low on this list. He'd be high on this list because you're kind of looking for that mystery box. Since nobody here stands out as, oh, I have to have this guy. I will say for Hayden Wesneski, who did have a 10 strikeout performance, Lance Brosdowski had some interesting things to say about him. So I'll just read what he tweeted out. Astros overhaul of Wesneski seems to have focused on his lefty approach. New curveball, big reduction in sweeper usage, cutter usage doubled, four seam located more arm side up away as opposed to middle in. Righty approach was always sound. Sweeper command a plus. So it seems like he's saying that he's going to be less vulnerable to lefties now. Interestingly, Wesneski did up the sweeper usage in this start, threw it more than 40% of the time. I'm guessing, let me take a peek at the lineup. I'm guessing that's because they had a lot of right-handers in the lineup. It was the Angels, and yeah, very righty-heavy lineup. Nolan Shanwell, that's left-handed, but of course he's not that intimidating for an opposing pitcher. So that probably had something to do with Wesneski's approach. And I've said before, I'm not the biggest Wesneski guy. You'll find bigger believers in him than me, but it's been solid so far and is relief pitcher eligible too, if you need that.
Yeah, I think there were some interesting pitchers this weekend. I don't think, I actually think Dollander was probably the closest to like a must add. And even that, I don't think he actually is.
I want to give a mention here to Matthew Boyd, who's looked pretty good so far. And he was good last year. I know that Matthew Boyd has kind of been like a thing at times throughout the past decade, and he has burned us many times. But last year in 8 starts with the Guardians, he was really good. 2.72 ERA, 1.13 WHIP, 10.4 K per 9. So far this year, it's a 1.59 ERA, 1.18 WHIP, 1 strikeout per inning. And he's just looked solid, and obviously has a great team backing him here with the Chicago Cubs. 16 whiffs at the Dodgers this weekend for Matthew Boyd. So I think he's someone that you can probably use in the right matchup. So
I didn't realize his fastball velocity was up. For some reason, I thought it had been down, but it's actually up a mile per hour. So that's a little more interesting than I thought. Yeah. Okay. Matthew Boyd, just moderately interesting. Yeah.
All right, next group includes another Cub, Ben Brown, who was great at the Dodgers. 6 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts here. Shane Smith continues to pitch well against the Red Sox this time. 6 innings, 2 runs with 3 strikeouts. Edward Cabrera, solid in his season debut. 5 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. Changed the pitch mix up quite a bit in this one. And David Festa was okay in his season debut against the Tigers. 4 2/3, 1 unearned run with 4 strikeouts here. Anybody stand out from this group, perhaps? Festa, Edward Cabrera, Shane Smith, and Ben Brown.
I think these guys are all like sort of interesting. I don't think any of them are like pound the table. You need to go add them right now. Brown, it's an overstatement to say he's a 1-pitch pitcher. It's not that much of an overstatement, though. His fastball is not particularly good. His curveball is incredible. It's just kind of all he has. And so there's going to be some really good some performances like this. I don't think it's going to be sustainable, unfortunately. I think we're past hoping that Edward Cabrera can be consistently good, but maybe the light goes on at some point, and maybe this was a sign of it. He ran into a little bit of trouble in this one later on, but went like way less fastball heavy in this one. And that's kind of interesting because his fastball command is kind of always the biggest issue for Edward Cabrera. He throws his changeup and his slider really well. So maybe going to those more can make it work. And then I think Festa's pretty good. I don't think he's a difference maker, but I think he belongs in the rotation moving forward. I don't know if they'll keep him in the rotation, but I think he deserves to be there.
I think he has the tools too, right? He has this new age fastball, David Festa, elite extension, 20 inches of induced vertical break. It looks like the secondaries are really good too.
Good
with
slider and changeup, yeah.
In the slider. I think one thing that could hold them back is when the Twins call up pitchers like early on in their career, they really do limit them a lot.
Yes.
Like they only let him throw 64 pitches in this start. And I think if you're depending on if you need quality starts, I don't think David Festa's ever going to be allowed to go 6 innings. So
ever?
Well, maybe he's really efficient, but I just feel like the Twins kind of play it safe, and they're pretty cautious with their starting pitcher.
Yeah, he is. Okay, so David Fest, obviously this isn't his first go around. He was up for 14 appearances, 13 starts last year. He did go 6-1, but only 1. A lot of 5-inning starts. Remember, he had a 13% swinging strike rate during that time, which is good. I got to be honest. I still prefer Zebby. Like I said, Easton Lucas, mixing up the first and last name, Easton Lucas, right? I said he was the main pitcher I was picking up, the highest priority off the waiver wire for me for this weekend. It was actually Zebby Matthews in the leagues where he's still available. It doesn't sound like he is going to start Monday. I know some on the Twins beat speculated that was the case.
Yeah, there had been some chatter.
And it looks like Joe Ryan is scheduled to go then, but it's not going to be long. And I think the impact is going to be immediate for him.
Again, that was Zebby Matthews that we were just talking about. Out of this group, we didn't really talk too much about Shane Smith. He's just been solid so far. At least 5 2/3 innings in all 3 outings. Has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in all 3 outings. Wins are obviously going to be hard to come by here, but I've been pretty impressed by what we've seen so far. So for me, I like Matthew Boyd in the first group. I like Shane Smith and David Festa here in the second group. I do agree that I would prefer to stash Zebby over both of those pitchers that we just talked about. Next group.
I do like Shane Smith. I wish he didn't pitch for the White Sox. That's going to make it hard.
The next group here, Matthew Liberatore, a strong start against the Phillies, 6 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts, 14 whiffs, and really leaned on the slider. The velocity was up in this one. Andre Palante, where did this come from? Not entirely sure. 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts, also against the Phillies. Jose Quintana pitched very well in his Brewers debut at the D-backs, 7 shutout with only 2 strikeouts. And Will Warren picked up his first major league win against the Giants, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 14 whiffs on 91 pitches. We're getting a little bit deeper here into the player pool, but do any of these names?
No, I mean, there's some pretty interesting stuff happening with all of these guys. I'm not sure any of them are priority ads off the waiver wire, except in very deep leagues, but I could see them becoming that. So Palante, Andre Palante of the Cardinals, he is one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball. In fact, he has a 70% ground ball rate currently, which is just insane. His slider has a 52% whiff rate. Like, he hasn't been getting a lot of strikeouts. He's mostly leaned on getting weak contact, but he has a pitch there that's missing bats when he needs to draw on it. And he was useful at times last year too. I don't think he's somebody to totally write off. Liberatore, of course, has a top prospect pedigree. We're kind of past the point of thinking about him in those terms because it's been so long of such mediocrity. But a great start in every way here on Sunday, and all of his pitches were up 1 to 2 miles per hour. The slider got 11 whiffs on its own. And so maybe if he's able to work at a higher velocity like that, there could be something there. We'll see how the next start goes. It may just be a one and done for Liberatore, but I'm at least curious to see how that goes. And Will Warren, he has like a 45% whiff rate on his fastball.
Yeah.
Which is like twice as high as a good whiff rate on that pitch. Now, a lot of good it's done for him, but it's hard to imagine if he sustains anything close to that. If he sustains 2/3 of that, it's hard to imagine Will Warren won't be a strikeout guy. I mean, that wasn't even the pitch getting all the attention this spring. It was the sweeper that pushes 3,000 RPM, which is also something you rarely see. So some really interesting characteristics there on Will Warren's pitches. Now, he hasn't turned in a start. I guess the start that comes closest to getting excited about was this one over the weekend against the Giants, 2 hits in 5 innings. But I think he is interesting. So we'll keep an eye on Will Warren as well.
All right, a couple other deep league names. I'm just going to throw a bunch of names at you, and if anyone stands out, just feel free to talk about them. Andrew Abbott, Tyler Anderson, JT Ginn, Luis L. Ortiz, Kyle Hart, Joe Boyle, and Davis Martin all had good starts this weekend. Chris, any of those names stand out? It was Davis Martin, Joe Boyle, Kyle Hart, Luis Ortiz, JT Ginn, Tyler Anderson, Andrew Abbott.
Yeah, Luis Ortiz started throwing a lot more four-seamers and cutters in this one, especially to lefties, and that worked really well for him. He got 8 whiffs with the four-seamer in this one. I don't know how sustainable it is. I still think he's more like a Spark, but I don't think there's like a huge difference between Ortiz and someone like Shane Smith, who's probably a little more rostered. They're both, I think, primarily interesting for the Spark eligibility.
Guardians got a good pitching factory there, and they had a lot of good things to say about Luis Ortiz after this start.
Doesn't seem to be working for Tanner Bybee or Gavin Williams so far.
Bybee's
generally
fine,
we defer to
the
Guardians. Kyle Hart, I think this was just the Rockies away from Coors Field. They did not score a single run in that series against the Padres. Michael King had it. Yeah, it was the first time that's happened since 2017. And not to the Rockies, although it wouldn't be surprising if it was also them the last time. But yes, that's really bad. Joe Boyle is probably the most interesting of this group because the stuff is just ridiculous. He throws like a closer and usually looks like a closer trying to start. He usually doesn't actually pitch all that well. He throws really hard, gives up a lot of walks, but there's huge strikeout potential here. I think he probably ends up in the bullpen for the Rays long term, but he did give up 5 no-hit innings, 7 strikeouts, 12 whiffs on 74 pitches. I just don't know if he sticks around in Tampa. And he had a good spring, but walks are always a concern. He had 6 walks in his first 8 innings across 2 starts at AAA. So I would guess the likeliest outcome for Joe Boyle is he doesn't matter for fantasy, but he's super interesting.
Yeah. A lot of interesting arms, not a lot of like must-add arms. Boyle, I'll just add with him that the Rays do have a 7-game week coming up. So I could see him getting another turn. They're just sticking with the 6-man rotation. And then who knows what happens over the course of the week. Life could find a way if he has another good start. But I wasn't picking. I was glad I already had him stashed in an AL-only league and that I didn't drop him there. But I wasn't looking to add him in any of my normal-sized leagues. I will throw a mention here to JT Ginn, who we talked about on the prospects episode last time. His fastball, his sinker, is up 2 miles per hour this year. And it was helping him to big strikeout numbers at AAA. And he looked good in his return to the majors here against the Mets. 5 1/3 strong innings, 11 whiffs on 89 pitches. The thing is, he doesn't need to be a big bat misser because he's such a good ground ball pitcher. So it helps. It could take him from just somebody you stream on occasion to maybe JT Ginn does turn into somebody we're rostering in all leagues. Too early to say that now, but there are definite reasons for optimism with JT Ginn.
All right, again, those are all the waiver wire pitchers, some deep names up top. We went over names that you can use this specific week, Scott's sleeper pitchers for this upcoming week. Again, the big news is that Justin Steele will be out for the entire season due to elbow surgery. Let's take our first break. Before we do that, just a reminder to hit the like button if you're watching us live. Big thanks to those who are here. We appreciate you. And subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Baby, we are gonna start a fire.
From world-renowned clubs
simply devastating
to worldwide stars,
Wrexham have done it. This incredible ride continues.
the English Football League on CBS Sports Network, and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. I'm realizing now that I did not change the oh my goodness gracious from Friday, which was, of course, Scott's impression of Susan Bolt.
No, don't do it again.
So I will not. I was just filibustering. So I change it for a second. But let's get into the players of the weekend.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Chris, kick us off. Player of the weekend.
All right, where are the hooligans at? Jung Hoo Lee is off to just a remarkable start, and he put a capper on a big weekend with a 2-homer game against the Yankees on Sunday. That's 3 homers in 3 games in that series. I think one of them was a Yankee Field special, at least, maybe both. But he is hitting 375 with a 1232 OPS. And while obviously Jung Hoo Lee is not that good, entering today, he had a 461 expected WOBA and a 428 WOBA. So the 2-homer game aside, Jung Hoo Lee was actually playing pretty much up to his underlying numbers. And that's a big deal because this is a guy who makes a ton of contact, but there were a lot of questions about how good the quality of contact would be. Is this just another Masataka Yoshida? It does not appear to be, because while he's got a great approach at the plate, he also hits the ball hard enough to not be a total zero when it comes to power. His average exit velocity so far this season, 90.1 miles per hour for Jung Hoo Lee. That is 56th percentile in the majors. Last season, it wasn't quite as high, but it wasn't far off. We're not talking about a Luis Arias skill set here where there's just no power. I think Jung Hoo Lee can balance contact with quality in a way that I thought about. Maybe is he a top 30 outfielder the rest of the season? He's running a little bit. He's in a good spot in the lineup. I'm not there, but I could get there.
I mean, easily in points leagues, I could get there, but maybe overall, there are probably, I mean, usually by mid-season, enough outfielders have dropped out. Enough of the, like, we're chasing upside with this guy. Yeah. Outfielders have dropped out that some of the more some of the downside cases end up creeping up in the rankings, and I could see that for Lee. Not that he is just a floor case, like there is, but he's sort of like Stephen Kwanish in that he's probably not going to be. There's a limit to his upside.
Yeah. I do think that that's all fair, but the skills so far, and there is a bit of like a mystery box here because like we just didn't really get to see Jung Hoo Lee that much last season, but makes good contact. I think if nothing else, he'll hit for good batting average, but a little bit of power, maybe a little bit of speed. And the fact that the Giants trust him to bat third in that lineup, he's already got 16 runs and 11 RBI. I think the counting stats could be pretty good. Not that the Giants lineup is great, but they're solid. They don't really have any like holes. They're just solid all around. So I can see the counting stats actually being pretty good here for Jung Hoo Lee this season. He's up to 85% rostered on CBS, only 64% on Yahoo. So if you play on Yahoo, I just check to make sure that Jung Hoo Lee is not available. Scott, let's go over to you. Your player of the weekend, somebody who loves revenge.
Yeah, a big revenge weekend for Michael Busch. The biggest game came Saturday when he went 4 for 6 with 2 doubles, a home run, what should have been a second home run.
A grand slam, Scott.
It would have been. 4 batted balls over 100 miles per hour and 2 others above 95. So 6 hard hit balls that game for Michael Busch. And then he followed that up with another 2 for 4 performance and a home run Sunday. So Michael Busch has got it going on. His expected stats look great. His strikeout rate is lower than last year. And of course, improved over his rookie season too. I think he's really finding his footing in the majors now. And it's funny what's happened at first base. Doesn't this often seem to be the case where when a position looks weak going into his season, new players come and fill in the gaps? Because of course we've had Tyler Soderstrom and Ben Rice and Spencer Torkelson, and Kyle Manzardo is kind of fallen off lately here and doesn't quite have first base eligibility yet, but there's still a lot to like there for him, and he'll have first base eligibility soon. So in the podcast for the People League, a 16-teamer, I remember I got boxed out at first base despite all my warnings to all of you out there not to let that happen to you. I got Ben Rice and Michael Busch both very late, and now they're both doing so well, I don't know who to start at the position. I'm the one who picked up Tyler Soderstrom in the original podcast league, but I already have Bryce Harper, so I've been kind of shopping him a little bit. Soderstrom might just hold on to him for my DH spot. I don't know, but yeah, a lot of good options emerging there. Busch has not started a game against a left-hander yet this year, and of course they signed Justin Turner late to be a platoon option with him. But Justin Turner's 40, and he wasn't that good last year. If Busch keeps this up, I imagine we're going to start seeing him some against left-handers. And who knows? Who knows what kind of year he could have? I think he's part of the discussion now, even for 12-teamers.
It was really unfair that they had to start Justin Turner today. I don't know if you guys saw the stat. I think he entered today like 0 for 14 for his career against Tyler Glass now with like 9 strikeouts. I think he struck out 3 times against him.
Oh,
it was it was rough.
Yeah. Michael Busch, by the way, if you are thinking about picking him up and starting him this week, the Cubs have 6 games on the schedule. Looks like 0 lefties as well. So that would bode well for Michael Busch this upcoming week. Scott, with all that said about the first base position, I think we're still ranking him at the bottom of that list, right? Below the Ben Rices and Torkelson and Soderstrom.
Until we see Busch start against a left-hander, I think we have to. I mean, Rice keeps starting more and more against left-handers. Manzardo does.
All but one of his home runs have come against lefties, I believe.
Yeah, and he was out of the lineup against a lefty Sunday, Manzardo, but he started at least against half of them.
Mm-hmm. All right, my player of the weekend is going to be Sean Murphy, who went 2 for 4 with a double dong on Saturday and hit a home run earlier in the week in his first game back from the IL. He's only 52% rostered, and the reason we bring him up is in one catcher leagues, we often talk about the back end of the top 12 is you should really just ride the hot hand. And right now, Sean Murphy, despite, a limited sample here, his first week back, he's the hot hand. Like, he's hitting for home runs right away. And, I think as this Braves lineup slowly starts to pick things up and they, all kind of start to gel together here, I do think better days are coming for the Braves lineup overall. So if you are one of those people who just waited in a one catcher league, I think you can pick up and go ahead and start Sean Murphy.
And there was a part of me that was like writing him up today. I was like, oh yeah, but he struck out like 8 times in his first 20 plate appearances or whatever it is. And it's like, well, yeah, but Logan O'Hoppy's got like a 40% strikeout rate too. And I think Shea Langelier's strikeout rate is super high. And like there are very few catchers who you can't find a significant red flag in their profile. It's just, can you do enough to overcome it? And Sean Murphy clearly can.
Well, here's the biggest change for Sean Murphy. He wears glasses now.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
Remember his first year with the Braves, he had an average exit velocity of 91.5, a max of 114.7, 251 batting average, 844 OPS. And that was coming off a good year in Oakland the year before. Like, he looked like an emerging elite catcher, and then he fell off so completely. We blamed it on injuries. Maybe he just wasn't seeing the ball that well, because this is not like he switched from contacts to glasses. I think he did experiment with contacts.
He tried contacts and spraying and didn't work. Yeah.
But like, he just wasn't having corrective lenses at all. Like that's kind of a big deal in baseball, being able just to see the ball. And I kind of think the way Sean Murphy's going and as much help as the Braves offense needs. I know Drake Baldwin started 1 game since Murphy came up, but I don't think they're going to be able to play him enough to keep him around, because they just got to keep Murphy's bat. He's a good defender too, but his bat especially in the lineup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all fair points there on Sean Murphy, who's off to a nice start. Again, only 52% rostered. So in one catcher leagues, if you need the help, go ahead and snag Sean Murphy. Let's get into the news and notes from the weekend. And we have other injuries outside of Justin Steele. There are always injuries, of course. Middle infield injuries. CJ Abrams went on the IL with a right hip flexor strain. Paul DeYoung started at shortstop on Sunday with Ahmed Rosario at third base. Mason Wynn also placed on the IL with lower back spasms. Thomas Sajacy is slated to receive regular playing time at shortstop, or only has second base eligibility to start. I think Sajacy is a name for deeper leagues, but were there any clear shortstop replacements that you guys were looking at if you lost like a CJ Abrams or Mason Wynn this weekend?
I mean, the shortstop is just not very good outside of the top, 15 to 20 options. There's just like the difference between the haves and the have-nots. And I'm not even talking about the high-end guys. I'm talking about like 12 to 15. There's just such a stark drop-off that it's really hard to find guys who are not 80% rostered who are even worth a look. Like I've been trying to make Max Muncy happen, and he's got like a 480 OPS so far. Like when I wrote the waiver wire column today, top shortstop was Jordan Lawler, actually, because he's played a bunch of second base lately, and I just wonder if they're starting to, try to get him up to replace Ketel Marte. I think he's played like 5 of his last 6 games at second base.
Interesting.
There just aren't a lot of interesting shortstops out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is always the rub with shortstop, because it's high defensive threshold. So it's been a star-studded position. It's been deep in a drafting sense in recent years, but then certainly in middle infield leagues, when you have to find a replacement, there's just nothing to be found. So I like that idea of stashing Lawler. I
don't think Sagasi is particularly interesting.
He might be the best you can do, though, in a lot of ways. Like I'd take him.
I think I'd rather just take the flyer on Adele Amador.
I don't think he's eligible
stick
though.
around.
But he's only second base.
Yeah, well, Sagasi is too, right?
Yeah, but Sagasi
he's playing shortstop.
Yeah.
I
think in shallower leagues, Jacob Wilson is on your sleeper hitters.
Yeah.
Scott Geraldo Perdomo. While we don't think it's going to last, I mean, he is hot right now, and he's batting second in the D-backs lineup. So I think he's another name you could look at. In leagues with middle infield spots, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, I don't think he's very good, but he's running early on this season. He'll hit for a little bit of batting average. So again, it's like the lower you go, it's not very exciting. Like Joseph Ortiz, I think is kind of interesting. He just hasn't really done anything yet. So 26% rostered there for him. He is playing every day. He's a great defender, so he'll be on the field, but how much of an impact can he make? I guess deeper leagues, the name that probably stands out is Chase Mydroth from the weekend, who wasn't great, but he had like 3 walks on Friday. He had another hit in that game.
I mean, that's the thing about his skill set is at the minor league level, he walked a ton. For a guy who has like 0 power, he really walked a lot, and it's just, can you keep that up against major league pitchers? That's really hard to do. It's really hard to have a high walk rate when major league pitchers know that you can't challenge them. And so I'm pretty skeptical that this is going to work. But yeah, in a deeper league, I think Mydroth is pretty interesting. He'd be a lot more interesting if he could steal 25 bases. Like it's that kind of profile where his career high, I think, is 13. And it's like, man, if you were like a 25 steal guy, the pieces would come together a lot more easily.
I agree with the overall prognosis and express something similar on Friday's show. But the glimmer of hope for me is that he'd already hit 3 home runs at AAA and looked like he might have been doing a launch angle thing. And if you actually look at the exit velocities for Chase Mydroth last year, for a guy that is regarded as having no power, they weren't bad. They were like 88 and 108. Average and max. So we're not talking about Jacob Wilson
that's
here.
Average-ish, yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking about Jacob Wilson in terms of exit velocities.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving on with the news. Jake Cronenworth was placed in the IL with a non-displaced right rib fracture, and Jose Iglesias is in line for more playing time for those in deeper leagues. Again, if you need that second base or middle infielder. Some good middle infield news. Matt McLain is expected back when first eligible on Tuesday. Are you guys okay throwing McLain back in the lineup?
Yep. I'd want to see confirmation that he's activated, that there isn't some kind of last minute change. But yeah, I would, as long as he's active. Yeah.
Spencer Strider remains on track to make his season debut Wednesday against the Blue Jays. I assume we are a start on Strider.
Already queued him up, already pulled him out of the IL spot and stuck him in the lineup where I have him.
I was happy to see that there is one other person in the world who is at least entertaining the possibility that Spencer Strider might not just step back onto the field and be Spencer Strider immediately. And it's Scott White, because I thought I was the only person who like sees his velocity down like 3 miles per hour from 2023, I believe. And everyone's just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The latest starter was 2. Yeah.
Don't care. Yeah, I think it's down 2 from 2023, 3 from 2022.
Okay.
Everyone's just like, doesn't matter. And it's like, well, it might matter. I think he'll still be good. It just, I'm expecting more like the 15th best starting pitcher the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways it could go. He's introduced. It seems like he's broadened his arsenal a little
throwing
bit.
the change up and curve a little more.
And it could be like we saw for a lot of pitchers this spring. He's just not letting it go completely yet because it's not in games that count. It could be that he will be fine with reduced velocity because the shape of the fastball is okay.
But then you look at Jacob deGrom.
I would just put it. I think Spencer Strider is going to be great, but I would feel better if his velocity looked normal. I'd feel more confident in that.
I think he will be great. I think people are just acting as if it's a foregone conclusion that he will step on a mound 12 months and 14 days after having surgery and be exactly the same guy he was before. That's all.
Ketel Marte resumed baseball activities on Friday. He remains several weeks away from returning, but this was obviously a positive step for him. The Rockies recalled prospect Adael Amador on Sunday. He just turned 22 years old, 10 games at AAA this year, hit .275 with a .408 on base, 2 homers, 3 steals, .858 OPS, 11% rostered. Any interest in adding Adael Amador in leagues with middle infield spots?
So he was hitting the ball really hard in AAA. 92.1 mile per hour average exit velocity, 108 mile per hour max exit velo. That was higher than any he had last season. It's small sample in last season, but it was also a very small sample in AAA so far. So that's pretty interesting. He's got plenty of athleticism. He's one of those guys that scouts have always liked more than the underlying numbers. And he was an above average hitter at AA as a 21-year-old last season. So I think Amador is pretty interesting. I don't think he's a must add, but I hadn't seen that he got called up, but that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think his prospect stock was unfairly dinged last year because people regarded him as like one of the up and coming middle infield prospects, like one near quickly rising that list heading into last year. And then he got off to a slow start at AA, and then he got called up for some crazy reason and was terrible. It was clearly rushed. Finished last year very strong. And I think deserves to be treated as the same prospect we thought Adael Amador was going into 2024. And now he's back. You can take advantage of his stature being lowered in the minds of people by just leaving him out there for now. I think like a lot of times a prospect of this caliber, you just have to pick him up because somebody else will if you don't. But I don't think that's going to happen in Amador's case. So outside of the deeper leagues, I was kind of leaving him alone for now.
Clark Schmidt will make his season debut Wednesday against the Royals. Last year was the best that he's looked in his career. He's 66% rostered. Could be a pretty, seamless Justin Steele replacement, I guess. Do you guys have interest in adding Clark Schmidt?
Sure. Yeah, that's a fine one. Compared to some of the other ones we were bringing up, I would take Schmidt over, I think, any waiver wire pitcher we talked about adding, except maybe Zebby Matthews.
All right. Brandon Woodruff began a rehab assignment at AAA on Saturday. He allowed 2 earned runs over 3 2/3 innings, striking out 5. He averaged 92.3 miles per hour on his fastball, which was down 3.5 miles per hour from the last time we saw him back in 2023.
I'd probably add Schmidt over Matthews. Thinking about it more.
Okay. Trevor McGill underwent an MRI on his knee recently, but it came back clean. Then on Sunday, it was reported he'll receive a second opinion. This news came after he had a brutal blown save on Saturday night. Who would be next up for the Brewers if something were to happen to Trevor McGill?
Yeah, they've got a lot of interesting arms in their bullpen, but I don't know who's actually been like working those high leverage situations. Now, Yoel Payamps is often just really solid, so it might just be him. He doesn't have the upside of an Abner Uribe.
He's been really bad so far.
Uribe?
No, Payamps has.
Payamps had, I know, one terrible outing.
Yeah, he does have a 19.06.
That's pretty bad, yeah.
You know who it should be?
Oh, I know.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
Yeah, that is Craig Yoho, who's off to a great start in the minor leagues as well. I was looking to add him in a few spots here on Sunday night, but the problem in like Tout Wars and other leagues is where if you add him, he has to go into your lineup. So it's tough.
Yeah.
I do think like if Trevor McGill went on the IL, which right now it doesn't sound like that's going to happen, but if it were to happen, they would probably just call up Craig Yoho. Will he be the closer right away?
Doubtful.
I don't think so. I think it would probably be Abner Uribe.
I think Uribe would be in the mix. He's kept the walks in control, which was the big issue for him last year. Jared Koenig, Koenig, I don't know how you pronounce that. He was really good last year. There's some upside there as well. Yeah, I guess Uribe.
All right. Seiya Suzuki left Saturday's game due to right wrist pain and was out of the lineup on Sunday. So monitor his status.
I think that was on a stolen base attempt.
Yeah.
So that's a little worrisome.
Brenton Doyle has missed 3 straight with a quad injury. We don't know too much as of now. Have you guys seen anything? Are you starting Brenton Doyle?
I mean, you can only backdate for 3 days. So I feel like they got to make a decision tomorrow. So if he's in the lineup, I'm playing him, but I can't if they don't announce it ahead of time.
Later lineup lock tomorrow, thankfully. First game isn't until 6:40 Eastern time.
Oh, that stinks.
Jonathan India left Saturday with right quad tightness. The injury is considered mild, though he was out of the lineup on Sunday, so that's another one to watch. Lane Thomas has missed 5 straight with a right wrist contusion, and I do think in shallower leagues, he's probably not even rostered, but in 5 outfielder leagues, you might want to plan to bench Lane Thomas this week. George Springer left Sunday after tweaking his left wrist during an at-bat. X-rays came back negative. We spoke about this already. Zebby Matthews will not be called up to start Monday against the Mets. Hopefully it is soon after that. Connor Norby started a rehab assignment on Saturday. He's 39% rostered, a name that you can look to pick up in Roto or Categories leagues. Joey Bart missed 2 straight with lower back discomfort. As a result, Henry Davis was recalled. Henry Davis mashes the minors, not the majors so far. So do you guys have any interest in 2-catcher leagues in Henry Davis?
Can't say that I do at this point.
Do they have 4 out catchers on their roster right now, or is Andy Rodriguez just the backup? Yeah, I guess Andy Rodriguez is just the backup. I don't really understand the plan there. But it
is the Pirates after all.
Joey Bart is, I don't know, he continues to hit really well at AAA and then do nothing at the major league level when he gets called up. So
you mean Henry Davis, right?
Henry Davis, yeah. So I look, Joey Bart figured it out eventually. Henry Davis isn't that old. Maybe. I don't know.
Grayson Rodriguez threw a side session Saturday, his 3rd throughout his rehab. Clayton Kershaw will begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Wednesday. He is not eligible to return until May 17th. The Twins reinstated Brooks Lee from the IL and sent Jose Miranda back to AAA. The Marlins placed Nick Fortes on the IL with a left oblique strain, and instead of promoting their top catcher prospect, Augustine Ramirez, they brought up veteran catcher Rob Brantley. Cowards. Why would you do this?
Whatever.
It's annoying for fantasy.
Augustine Ramirez is having an awesome start, by the way. He's hitting 298 with a 900 OPS. It's done.
The Braves optioned AJ Smith-Shawver back to AAA with Spencer Strider expected to return. A little bit interesting that they chose to stick with Bryce Elder over AJ Smith-Shawver here.
I think they urgently needed a bullpen arm because they were just overtaxed, and Smith-Shawver had just taken his turn. So it just lined up better to send him down than Elder, and probably Smith-Shawver will be back after the minimum 10 days or whatever.
All right, other players who went on the IL this weekend, Richard Fitz with a right pectoral strain, Ben Joyce with shoulder inflammation, Marcus Stroman with left knee inflammation, and Tyler Freeman with a left oblique strain. Let's take our final break. When we return, we'll get back into this weekend's action right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Waiver wire hitters from the weekend, and Josh Jung. This is very shallow league stuff to start here, but Josh Jung, 78% rostered. He is mashing since his return. 5 games, 8 hits, 1 homer, 4 runs, 5 RBI, and 1 steal. Trevor Story off to a really nice start, 3 for 4 with his third home run on Sunday. Had steals on both Friday and Saturday as well. He is batting
up to six steals.
Batting 308 with 3 homers and 6 steals. He's up to 77% rostered. If they were dropped in, I guess the shallowest leagues would be points leagues. Are Josh Jung and Trevor Story names that need to be rostered in that format?
Not Trevor Story. 31% strikeout rate. He's not hitting the ball very hard. I don't think he's rosterable in a 12-team head-to-head points league. Young, maybe, because I think he's good as long as he can stay healthy. The Josh Jung hive is here. We call ourselves the collective unconscious. That's a little psychology humor for you. I think Josh Jung is really good. I think he just has to stay healthy, and he's a 25 homer guy.
I don't think Young is good. I think his exit velocities are Chase Mydroth-like, but much worse plate discipline. So, yeah, I don't know. Even that home run he hit coming off the IL was like a 340-foot shot.
It is worth acknowledging. He had a 91.8 mile per hour average exit velocity for a whole dang major league season.
He did. There was that one year.
Chase Mydroth had an 88 mile per hour average exit velocity against AAA pitchers. I think you are being extraordinarily unfair to Josh Jung.
Wow. Okay. I think you're putting too much on 2023.
92 miles per hour is a really high exit velocity, and he hasn't been healthy since then.
Yeah, he also hasn't been good.
I will mention
those are related.
Trevor Story, by the way, only 40% rostered on Yahoo. So if you lost Abrams or Mason Wynn on Yahoo, then I think Trevor Story is a name you can look at in that format.
I think I do prefer Story. I don't think either Young or Story is going to be worth your time in a points league, except on an emergency basis, because they're like Young doesn't walk enough and strikes out too much normally.
Mm-hmm.
And Story strikes out too much too.
Let's talk about Cam Smith, who is waking up so far. 2 for 4 with a sock in the shoe on Friday. His first career home run, his first career steal. He did sit 2 games on Sunday and Monday of last week, but 5 games since then. 6 hits, 1 homer, 6 RBI, 1 steal. Down to 72% rostered. If anybody maybe prematurely dropped Cam Smith, would you be looking to re-add him?
He is now both third base and outfield eligible. He's hitting the ball pretty hard from what I've seen.
Ideally, yes, but I gotta admit, I've been tempted to drop Matt Shaw in a shallower league. Like, I don't want to do this again. I went through the whole thing last year. It usually takes rookie hitters 2 months, 2 whole months to find their footing, and then they're great. But 2 months seems like a long time from now.
It is a long time.
And roster space is limited.
Look,
somebody's going to benefit from somebody else dropping Cam Smith in all likelihood.
If you have the roster space, I think Cam Smith is absolutely worth stashing.
I agree.
Not someone you can start right now. Not sure how consistent the playing time is going to be, but it's a rare opportunity. Like, a lot of the guys we're talking about on waivers, once the first couple of weeks of the season are out of the way, are just guys, just retreads who had a good game, basically. And Cam Smith is more than that, potentially. We don't know, but at least there's uncertainty there. So, yeah, I would rather add Cam Smith than Christopher Morel to name one retread we're talking about.
Yeah. It's hard this time of year making use of the roster space because, like, there wasn't a league, except ones where I lost Justin Steele, I guess, where I was like, this is easy. I don't mind dropping this guy for this flavor of the week. It was always like, I don't want to drop him. Do I have to? Is there anyone else I can drop? Do I really have to add this guy? It was like that kind of agonizing in every league.
Yeah. No, it is tough for sure. Totally hear you on that one. 3 outfielders that could be out there in shallower formats. Taylor Ward, who has 5 home runs in his past 5 games. Jorge Soler has 4 homers in his last 8 games. And Christopher Morel had a huge game on Friday 3 for 4 with a sock and 2 shoes. That's his first home run, his first 2 steals of the season. I will bring up with Morel, 51% rostered, second, third, and outfield eligibility. The Rays have the third best hitter matchups this week. So if you are just kind of chasing that week-to-week production, I think Morel's a name that you can look at. But what do you guys think about Ward, Soler, and Christopher Morel?
I think
Probably
Ward and Soler are probably under rostered, but I get why they're under rostered because they are the boring retreads that we were just talking about. Where, like, Scott, you mentioned something earlier about like when attrition takes over at the outfield position, Jung Hoo Lee could very easily be a top 30 guy. Well, I think Taylor Ward was like the number 23 outfielder last season. And you look at the numbers, it's like, well, how'd that happen? It's just because he stayed healthy. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys that like you're never excited about drafting. The upside's not very high. He's nice to have around. I think Jorge Soler is probably the same, where it's like there's a reason they get pushed down draft boards. But once all the guys we were excited about talking ourselves into who, flop or get hurt, it's like, Taylor Ward, at least he's going to play every day and will be productive. He's not going to be great, but we'll look at the end of the season. He's going to have 25 homers.
He's uncanny the way his season breaks down. Generally tremendous in April and September is Taylor Ward and horrible in every other month. And so there's that. I don't know that you can really like bank on that happening year after year, but that has been how it's gone for Taylor Ward in his career.
Couple names in deeper leagues. We already spoke about Chase Mydroth. Again, if you need that shortstop replacement, I think that makes a lot of sense. Matt Mervis is on a homer binge right now. He hit 2 more home runs this weekend. He has homered in the last 3 games that he has played. He does not play against lefties overall, but he's hitting .294 with a 1077 OPS. And Kyle Stowers had a nice weekend for the Marlins. 7 hits, 4 runs, 6 RBI. Were you guys looking at either in some of those deeper leagues this weekend, Matt Mervis or Kyle Stowers?
I was looking to add Mervis in a 15-team roto league just because I've lost some hitters and, well, maybe he'll give me some power. I don't really feel good about it. He strikes out over 40% of the time. He's not playing that consistently. He's not even first base eligible yet, is Mervis, though that's I guess in CBS leagues he is. I was looking at some where he with stricter eligibility requirements, but yeah, it was just, I was looking into Matt Mervis, but it was just to fill a need more than I got to get this guy for the upside situation.
All right, what to do with Dylan Cruz? He has sat out 2 in a row against a right-handed pitcher, and we know that he is off to a very rough start. And now if he's, I don't want to say he's falling into a short side platoon, but I guess it is a possibility. I mean, what are you guys doing with Dylan Cruz right now?
Is it May yet?
No.
I'm not dropping Dylan Cruz. Bench him until he turns it around. Maybe the Nationals are done with him and they send him down or keep benching him, but I'm not going to give up on a player of that talent who I drafted that early this soon. It's just not going to happen. There's a reason you have a bench. People always act like you just don't have benches. And like you can just like I'm looking at the chat right now. You got to drop Tristan Casas. Well, no, you don't. You can just put him, like, I get it. It's frustrating, but like you have 5 to 7 bench spots, presumably. You can just put a guy there. Like
it does depend on the format.
Yeah, if you play in a daily lineup league, it's like those are more valuable, you know.
I was thinking like the standard CBS head-to-head points format where you have 5 bench spots, and I'm trying to get them all filled with pitchers.
I get it, but like it's not an ideal
world. I
world.
have one hitter on my
dropping Dylan. I think you are more likely to regret dropping Dylan Cruz or Tristan Casas or Lars Nootbaar or whoever. I'm just looking at all the players and that people in the chat are saying suck right now. So get all your players who you think suck out. You are much more likely to regret dropping those guys than you are to regret not adding Easton Lucas.
Well, it depends how many losses you take in the meantime, I guess. But
you're not losing. Like if you lost because you didn't pick up Easton Lucas, I'm sorry. Like that, I apologize from the depths of my heart. That one's on me then. But I might just
play head-to-head points differently. But like, I try to cram as many starts as I can into my lineup every week.
I agree, but you still have 5 bench spots.
I know,
at least
that's not very many. And I'm just talking in that one format. And
it's more than one.
No, I'm talking about that one format.
I'm saying it's more than one bench spot, though.
Oh, yeah, it's more than one bench
like
spot.
You probably have a player who's less interesting than Dylan Cruz or whatever upsidey pick who isn't playing well right now.
I don't know. It's been my experience in those shallower head-to-head points leagues that there are always good hitters on the waiver wire. So they're just more expendable.
Mm-hmm.
And there are rarely good pitchers on the waiver wire. But like, it's just that one. I don't want to overemphasize that format. Like the general rule, like, why would you drop Dylan Cruz? And I'm not even suggesting to drop Dylan Cruz in that format. So maybe this conversation has gone on longer than it should. I'm just saying those are the formats. Like, I'm going to drop Jonathan India in a head-to-head points league because I can't start him this week. That's the only reason I'm dropping him. He has an injury tag next to his name. I can't start him. So I'm going to drop him for a second baseman I can start.
But
when
Jonathan
normally
India
Roto logic would be like, you want to drop a player just because he has an injury tag next to his name. So that's what I'm getting at. But I like, my frustration this time of year is like, why are we treating mid-April like it's the end of the season and we're reflecting back? Like, why do we want to rush to the end of the season and say, clearly this didn't work out with this guy? Like, we've got almost 6 months to go. So we got to pace ourselves with these takes on how good players are.
It's 10% of the season so far. That is nothing. And we do this every year. And I know, Frank, you want us to move on so we can move on, but it's 10% of the year. Your opinion of a player cannot change that much in 10% of the year. Unless something drastic happened. If you liked Dylan Cruz enough to draft him at his ADP, which was like 125, there's just no way that your opinion of him can change that much in 12 games that he's played. Like, that is not how baseball works. The sample size, the information, it doesn't matter. He could strike out 50% of the time, and it just doesn't matter. Like, it matters if the Nationals lose faith in him. But for the most part, and look, Cruz does not have a long track record. And yes, you are right to point out that he has been sad against 2 right-handers, and maybe that is the start of them losing confidence in him, in which case that is a signal. But that he's been bad, I just don't care. Like, I really do not care that guys are struggling or hitting really well right now. It matters when you go from Jung Hoo Lee, who was like 50% rostered, to, he should be rostered everywhere, because the opportunity cost of adding a guy is nothing. The opportunity cost of dropping a player with Dylan Cruz talent is incredibly high, especially when you're going off 37, 45, whatever plate appearance. It's just not enough information to make an informed decision. If you don't want to make an informed decision, that's totally cool. Like, it's your team. But if you're asking us whether you should drop Dylan Cruz or Tristan Casas or whoever, whatever top 150 pick is struggling, we're going to say no. Or at least I am.
I understand your premise completely, but I do think a lot of people that are listening to this and maybe have these issues or these thoughts or these questions, they play in shallower formats. And
sure,
with someone like Dylan Cruz, like, say you had him on your team and you already missed out on like Jung Hoo Lee, who got picked up. We were talking about him earlier as a potential top 30 outfielder rest of the season. That might be better than Dylan Cruz, right? So like,
but we were drafting Dylan Cruz.
You might miss out on the player that can replace Dylan Cruz or even Tristan Casas. Well, like, if you missed out on like Soderstrom and Torkelson and Ben Rice already, but you might have missed out on your chance for someone who might turn out to be a top 12.
That's why I'm continuing to point out you have 5 to 7 bench spots. So like, thinking of it as Cruz versus Jung Hoo Lee, like, I don't know, man. If you're in a spot where Dylan Cruz is clearly the least interesting player on your roster, then I don't even think you need Jung Hoo Lee, because your team is awesome. because you are in a spot where the 24th or 29th best player on your team is the number 3 prospect in baseball. That's awesome. That's not going to be the case in most places. I've got Joe Adell in some leagues. Like, I'd be thrilled to drop Joe Adell before Dylan Cruz. Like,
I think the kind of leagues where people are entertaining dropping Cruz though are not ones where Joe Adell is rostered.
Right. But I think you probably have a worse player than a guy you just drafted in the 11th round.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
You might. I don't know. I don't think it's crazy that if people play in shallower leagues, he could be like, obviously he could be your like least useful player right now. And even Scott mentioned earlier, like he thought about dropping Matt Shaw, and Matt Shaw is regarded as one of the top prospects in all of baseball too. So I really don't think it's that crazy. I would try to hold on to him, obviously, but I do think a lot of the people listening do play in really shallow formats.
To be clear, I have Dylan Cruz was one of my most drafted hitters. I have not dropped him anywhere or thought about dropping him in any of the leagues where I drafted him. But I didn't draft him in a 3 outfielder league where he was my 3rd outfielder drafted. And you know, I picked up Jung Hoo Lee since then, and I'm obviously starting him over Cruz. And you can, I don't know. I don't want to make the case for dropping Dylan Cruz. I just understand specifically in those head-to-head points leagues, and we should probably move on. But I understand that, like, you can only afford to invest maybe one bench spot in a hitter, or else you're just not getting enough starts to compete week to week.
Let's get back into this weekend's action. Some truly outstanding pitching performances. Michael King tossed the first complete game and first shutout of his career against the Rockies. 2-hitter with 8 strikeouts there. Garrett Crochet took a no-hitter into the 8th inning against his former team. The White Sox, 7 1/3, 1 hit, 1 run, 11 strikeouts there. Nick Pivetta, 7 shutout against the Rockies, of course, with 10 strikeouts. Cole Reagans makes it double-digit strikeouts in 3 straight, 7 2/3 innings, 2 runs, only one of those earned with 10 strikeouts to 0 walks. And Hunter Green just continues this amazing start, 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts against the Pirates. He has gone 7+ innings in 3 straight with 7+ strikeouts in all 4 of his outings.
And it's like a 6.5 walk rate over his last 16 starts. It's been really, really good.
Yeah. I know we don't want to, like, we pretty much just went over this. We don't want to change our opinion too much, 3 weeks into the season, but has anything changed for any of these pitchers? Michael King, Garrett Crochet, Nick Pivetta, Cole Reagans, and Hunter Green.
Well, most of them were ranked so high to begin with. I don't know how to rank them any higher. You might think about moving Corbin Burns behind some of them, not all of them. I wouldn't mind moving behind King, for instance. But yeah, we're talking about for Reagans, Crochet, King. We're talking about consensus top 15, if not top 12 guys, and they've performed like it and great.
Yeah, there's just not much room for anybody but Pivetta and Green really to move up. Yeah. I think Green was probably around 30 for all of us coming into the season, maybe between 25 and 30.
He's in my top 20 now.
He might just be a top 12 guy as long as he stays healthy, if he's a 6 to 7% walk rate guy, because for his career, he's been closer to 10%. But if we're talking about a 30% strikeout rate and a 6% walk rate, then all the stuff I talked about in the offseason about how much his quality of contact improved, that matters a lot less because the margin for error gets a lot wider. So I still have a lot of questions about his ability to stay healthy. He's never thrown more than 151 innings. He's only done that once. But doubting Hunter Green feels real dumb right now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was one of the loudest speaking out against Hunter Green. The biggest thing for me is still injuries, we don't know. We won't know until the end of the season whether or not it worked out or not.
So, I think there's always a sell high window there.
He was pretty brittle, Green, even before adding a couple miles per hour and now averaging almost 100 on his fastball. So that is the one. Like, performance wise, I'm down with Green, but it's just, I don't expect him to give me an ace workload, so I'm not ranking him quite like an ace. And I might entertain the thought of selling high, Obviously, you got to get something really, really, really good at this point.
Yeah.
Pavetta is the other one that has a chance to move up. This was his first dominant start where he had the big strikeout numbers, and it came against Colorado in San Diego. It's worth noting, but 10 whiffs on his fastball, which had 21 inches of induced vertical break, which is insane. He does seem to have a sinker that he's mixing in now, and he got 5 whiffs on that pitch, even though he didn't even throw it that much. So he's looked decent until now. Had a great start. I'm certainly not moving him down. I'll have to look later this week to see how much I'm moving him up. But if you drafted Pavetta, you should feel pretty good about him right now.
What's going on with these starting pitchers, and should you start or sit them this week? Which for some might sound crazy, but Tanner Bybee has been inefficient so far this season, and he's 57% started on CBS. He's at the Orioles this week. What do you guys think? What's going on? Start or sit?
I don't think there's a lot to worry about here. So it's not close to a drop situation for Bybee. Would you sit him? Depends what your pitching depth looks like, how shallow the league is. I would be open to the idea if I was excited to start someone and the only way to do it was to bench Bybee against the Orioles. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's just execution right now, which can turn on a dime. It's just we don't know when it's going to happen. I do expect it to happen.
What about Jacob deGrom, who was at the Mariners this weekend? He gave up 3 runs, 4 walks, 2 homers allowed in this one. Still had 16 whiffs, but the underlying numbers don't look great, and it's kind of been a mess here. What's going on with deGrom? Do you start him against the Angels this week?
I think the one scenario we didn't account for with deGrom is just what if he's not good? Because he looked good coming back from Tommy John surgery last year, and that was with the velocity being down a couple miles per hour. And again, we say he's lost a couple miles per hour. He is now working at the velocity he was at when he was winning Cy Youngs. He stopped winning Cy Youngs when he started throwing harder because he couldn't last long anymore. But yeah, it's been kind of rough. I think he'll be fine in the long run. You just hate to waste starts where he's actually healthy. Well, because you need him to make a high impact for as long as he is.
And if the trade-off works and he does manage to stay healthy this season, then it doesn't matter. Like if he's a 3.50 ERA pitcher, but he stays healthy the rest of the way, that's awesome. That's a win at what you drafted him at. It's just, that was why my question coming in was, is Jacob deGrom actually intentionally throwing less hard, or is this as hard as he can throw? And he says this is an intentional thing. I have no idea. Like it's a question of, is this him throwing at 85% or is this him throwing at 95%? That's a big deal. And I just don't know what the answer is, but I think he's still a must start guy. I'd still definitely start him against the Angels. I don't know if we have Chris Sale on the rundown.
We do.
Okay. Cause that's another one that we're starting him, but
yeah,
it's not been great.
No, he's actually been quite bad, but his underlying numbers look a lot better. And his velocity was way up this weekend.
Yeah,
the biggest thing that stands out for me, he has a 4.07 BABIP against right now. And last year that was 3.14. Also, Chris Sale's left on base percentage is really low so far. So if you're worried about the injuries with Sale, you probably shouldn't buy low. But if you still just trust the talent, then he kind of looks like one of the pretty clear buy low pitchers right now.
So there was talk on the Braves beat that they were worried about his velocity lagging, Chris Sale, early on. It didn't seem that low to me, but that was the talk that, maybe something's wrong with him because his velocity's down.
It was about 1.7 miles per hour down entering this start.
It was way up in this start. Way up. He averaged 96.2 on his fastball. It was 94.9 last year, and all the pitches were up. So
I only had one start last year with a higher fastball velocity.
I almost wonder if he was overthrowing on purpose to make the point that he's healthy, because we have seen Chris Sale do stuff like that before. But yeah, he appears to be healthy now. I think location's an issue. I think location's an issue for DeGrom too, by the way. We didn't mention that. The walks were the biggest issue in this latest start, and he threw only 57% of his pitches for strikes. His comment, DeGrom, this is after the game, was, I've just got to do a better job throwing the ball where I want to. That's the bottom line. So that's what he's attributing it to, and I think there's some evidence to back that out. Again, that's DeGrom. Sale.
But that was the whole point. The whole point was he's throwing less hard so he can pinpoint it.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I think health was something he brought up too, but yeah.
Three other pitchers starters sit this week. Jackson Jobe, who actually picked up the first win and quality start of his career. He is home against the Royals this week, but still only 2 strikeouts. Sandy Alcantara has been a bit iffy through 3 starts. He also had 11 days off between starts here. He had the paternity leave. He is at the Phillies this week. And Roki Sasaki looked better against the Cubs. 5 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. But, still giving up a lot of hard contact. It's not ideal. It's more walks than strikeouts so far for Sasaki as well. He's at the Rangers. What do you guys think about these 3? Jobe, Sandy, and Sasaki this week?
I don't think you can start Sasaki right now. I will say, when I saw that the Cubs won that game 16-0, I assumed that Sasaki had a disaster start, and it was actually all the other pitchers who got rocked. He wasn't terrible, but yeah, he just hasn't shown much in the way of the ability to be a viable fantasy option. I kind of lean that way for Jackson Jobe as well. I'm waiting someone smart to give me an explanation for why there is such a divergence between what he looks like and what the stuff models say and what his results are, because he just does not miss bats. My hunch is that it's just bad control, but I'd prefer not to start Jackson Jobe against Kansas City, and I'm okay sitting Sandy Alcantara against Philadelphia right now.
Sure.
All right, let's get through some other leftovers from the weekend and some pitchers here. Chris Bubic was human, still turned a quality start at the Guardians. Taj Bradley shut down the Braves. Yamamoto dominant against the Cubs, and Christopher Sanchez solid at the Cardinals. But notice he's still just giving up too many hits this year, and the whip is high. And maybe this is just part of who Christopher Sanchez is. But did you guys see anything from Sanchez, Yamamoto, Taj Bradley, and Chris Bubic?
A ground ball guy's going to have a higher whip. I mean, BABIP. Well, also maybe whip, but especially BABIP is what I was trying to say. And so if the added velocity causes the strikeouts to increase, that'll counteract that for Sanchez. Obviously, it won't affect the BABIP itself, but it'll help to keep the whip down by preventing contact in the first place. So it wasn't his best start, obviously, Sanchez, but I still think I don't think you should judge him primarily on this start. I think overall the trend lines are up on him. Yamamoto's look really good, and he is not throwing as hard. So I don't know. It's working for him, but everything's down, I think, close to a mile per hour. But he looks great and good. I'm glad.
Yep. A couple other names here. Drew Rasmussen continues to pitch well, also continues to be limited. He has gone 70, 79, and 80 pitches in his first 3 starts. Brian Wu looked great against the Rangers, 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. And Kodai Senga, strong start at the Athletics, 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. Chris, anything here on Senga, Brian Wu, and Rasmussen?
The Mets are being really careful with Kodai Senga, even in this one where he was super efficient, which is not usually how he pitches. He only got 79 pitches in his 7 innings. Strikeouts haven't really been there. Only 1 outing this year with more than 4 strikeouts out of his 3, I believe. I don't know what's up with that, because the forkball is still really good, but the rest of the stuff hasn't been there. I think Kodai Senga is probably fine, but probably not a huge difference maker. And I think Rasmussen, this is just going to be the deal with him. It's a combination of his injury history and pitching on the Rays. I think they're just going to treat him with kid gloves all season. And there's going to be a few 6-inning starts out there, but for the most part, I think it's going to be an earlier hook than you'd like. And Brian Wu rules. He's awesome.
On to the hitting leftovers here. Nice weekend for Luis Robert, 1 for 3 with 2 steals on Friday, then a sock and a shoe on Saturday. A huge week in general for James Wood. He didn't hit another home run on Friday. He had 3 walks and a steal on Sunday. Isaac Paredes, his first big weekend with the Astros. He homered in each game. Big weekend for Buxton, 1 for 4 with a sock and a shoe on Friday. 2 for 4 with another home run on Sunday. Fernando Tatis returned on Friday. He was dealing with that left shoulder injury, and he looks fine. 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe on Friday, and 1 for 4 with another home run on Saturday. Torkelson continues his nice start. He had 2 home runs this weekend, and a big game for Pete Crow Armstrong on Sunday Night Baseball. Bit of a homecoming there for him. He's from the California area with his family in attendance. 3 for 4 with a double dong for Pete Crow Armstrong. Anything here on these names?
Mom's an actress. Of course, he's from the Los Angeles area.
That's right.
I will just point out, like, Isaac Paredes is a good example of why overreacting to 12 games is bad, because all of a sudden he's on a 30 homer pace and hitting 276. Like his numbers look exactly like what we would have expected them to in any 15 game stretch of the season. And 3 games ago, he was having a horrific start.
I was getting some shade about him, about hyping Paredes so hard heading into the weekend. And I was just like, he'll be fine.
And at least one of those was just a Crawford box special, I believe. So we got the concrete evidence of the case for Isaac Paredes. If it wasn't for the Crawford boxes, he'd only be on a 20 homer pace.
He's homered in a third of his games in Houston so far. So if he keeps that up,
it's going to be a great season.
Going to be a great season. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. The call to the bullpen for the Reds, Emilio Pagan picked up saves on both Friday and Saturday. He's now up to 4 on the season and is only 28% rostered. We'll see what happens when Alexis Diaz is back. For the Marlins on Friday, Anthony Bender entered with 2 runners on in the 8th inning, a 2-run lead. He gave up a walk and then a 3-run double, took his first blown save and first loss. On Saturday, Bender was unavailable. Calvin Fauché picked up his first save. And then on Sunday, Anthony Bender pitched the 8th inning with a 4-run lead, gave up a hit and a walk, but got out of it. And then the Marlins blew the game open after that. I don't know if there's like a trend or if it's just, all right, Bender in just the biggest spots in the game. And then whoever closes
part of the problem is neither's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. I did pick up Fauché and in the leagues where I was dropping him. I was able to get him back. Cost me some fab dollars. Maybe just a waste of time, but saves are scarce. And so Fauché, they're like the Marlins bullpen feels like the only one that's kind of in flux right now. That'll change soon enough. But there were no other emerging save sources over the weekend.
All right. For the Tigers on Friday, Tommy Canley got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up 1 run on 3 hits, but picked up his second save. He's only 31% rostered. And
I do want to put,
kind of just looks like the guy for the Tigers right now.
Yeah. Brent Suter. He's tied with Brant Suter. That's his name, right? Brant Suter for the team league in saves.
I think it's Brant Herter.
Herter. That's it. Brant Herter.
Who hurt you by calling him Suter?
There's another pitcher named Suter, right?
Brent Suter. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. No, but he has 2 saves and Tommy Canley has 2. Herter's both are 3-inning saves. So I think there's nothing there. I think that's just Canley.
All right. Next up, we have the Dodgers on Friday. Blake Treinen got the 8th inning with a 3-run lead, facing 6, 7, and 8 in the Cubs lineup. He retired them in order. And then it was Tanner Scott who got the save in the 9th inning. For the Phillies on Saturday, Jordan Romano looks like he is kind of back in the mix for high leverage, I guess. He pitched the 8th inning with a 3-run lead facing the heart of the Cardinals lineup. He gave up a hit, but that was it. And then Jose Alvarado got the 9th inning. He struck out 1 for his 3rd save of the season. For the Royals on Sunday, Lucas Erceg got the final out for his final out in the 8th with a 2-run lead. It was Estevez who got the 9th inning and picked up his 5th save. It really just kind of feels like Estevez is the main guy in the 9th inning there for the Royals. And then for the D-backs on Sunday, Justin Martinez pitching the 8th inning with a 1-run lead, facing 4, 5, and 6 in the Brewers lineup. He struck out 2. And AJ Puck got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He walked 1, struck out 3 for his 3rd save of the season. And what if they're just both great all season, right? Like, what if they just both get 20 saves and give you awesome ratios? I don't think it's crazy. It might happen.
Yeah.
It
I
could happen.
The 15 to 25 for both of them seems reasonable. I think it's unlikely both get to 20, but 15 plus for both. I do want to point out with Romano, his velocity was back a little bit in his 2 outings over the weekend. He was down to 93.5 miles per hour with his fastball. Last weekend, they talked about identifying some mechanical issues, and he was averaging 95 and 96 in his 2 appearances. So that's good. I mean, I don't know if it matters, but it's better than it being down.
Fair enough. To stream or not to stream on Monday. Well, Scott, your favorite, Easton Lucas, is going up against the Braves. So I don't know how much we actually trust it there. We have Landon Roop at the Phillies. Jamison Tyone at the Padres.
I mean, Lucas looks like the best one, and the Braves have been a good matchup so far. I don't think that'll always be so. And Lucas, in 2 starts, he's carried over the high swinging strike rate and high fly ball rate from the minors. So there may be something there.
I would strongly prefer to avoid this group of players.
Well, then, Chris, you're not going to like Tuesday either, where I think Tyler McGill at the Twins might be the best. Landon Knack is going up against the Rockies in LA. Although
I could see it.
I don't think Knack is very good, but the Rockies on the road just look awful. Jake Irvin at the Pirates. I don't think Irvin's very good, but the Pirates offense is pretty bad too. So.
Yeah, I think Tyler McGill is a decent start. I think Verlander, like, I know it's a tough matchup, but I think he's better than the rest of these guys. And then Landon Knack, I mean, I think the Rockies away from Coors Field, especially, that's the first game outside of Coors.
No, they just played a series in San Diego.
Okay, that's right. That's right. That was in San Diego. So yeah, I think Knack is fine, but I think he's not a great pitcher. So it's mostly about the matchup, and I never feel great with that.
Yeah.
Works for me. You looking for me to say something?
I wanted the seal of approval there.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Scott loves giving his seal of approval on mediocre streamers.
Yeah, it's honestly his favorite. We're going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.